Well, hello family and friends. Hope you're all doing well. Today I decided to make a batch of my mother-in-law Madeleine's oatmeal cookies and figured I'd share the recipe with you. The history on this is that Madeleine would make these cookies quite often when Nikki was growing up. And we would have them all the time. They were a very health conscious cookie, if I could call them that, very dense. Their flavor was delicious, and she loved making them, and that was her cookie and her recipe. And so, I didn't really pay much attention to it until, of course, she was gone. And one day I thought, well, gee, I really kind of would like to make those cookies that Madeleine made. And I found an old handwritten recipe in her stack of recipe cards, and I tried to replicate it, and it came out terrible. So either there was something wrong with the recipe, missing from the recipe. I don't know what the problem was, but I could not replicate these cookies for the longest time. And I wanted to keep at it because A, as a remembrance to her, and B, because they were actually pretty good cookies and we liked them a lot. The family liked them a lot. So trial and error, I kept making these cookies until I came up with something that we like, that resembled her cookies, and that are really good. So that's what we're gonna do today. I will have the recipe in the notes with the video, and I'll go through the ingredients and then we'll get started making the cookies. So we're just starting with 1.5 sticks of butter. It can be unsalted or salted butter. I don't really care. Half a cup of sugar, white sugar, half a cup of brown sugar, 2 eggs, a little bit of vanilla, teaspoon of vanilla, some fresh orange juice, the rind of an orange. I get a big orange and I rind it, and then I use I squeeze it out and use the juice. Some salt, baking soda, some whole wheat flour, a little bit of regular flour, and then some rolled oats and some chopped nuts. I use walnuts and some chocolate chips. So kind of a legacy gem in that if you wanted to change up the nut you used, if you wanted to add another flavor besides orange, you want to leave the orange out, the cookie would hold up to that. But those are the classic flavors that Madeleine would put in the cookie, and I really like the orange. It gives it a really, really nice flavor. And the density of the cookie, although hers was a little on the hard side, or the dense side, these are more, they're firm, but they're also cake-like, so they're a lot of fun. They hold up really well after they're baked. You can leave them out in an airtight container, or you can put them in the fridge and they'll last quite a long time. So let's get to it. So I have the 1.5 sticks of butter already in the mixer, and the first thing we do is cream the sugars and the butter together. So that's the brown sugar, light brown sugar, and there's white sugar, half a cup each. So we're gonna get this on. Baking in my kitchen is sometimes a challenge for the setup, but we're gonna do the best we can here to show you what we're doing. So here we go with the creaming of the butter and the sugars together. Yeah, my mother-in-law wasn't traditional, I guess, in the baking that she did. But when she did bake, it was pretty good. And she had some really good. She had a great recipe for chocolate mousse that I have not yet begun to or been able to replicate either. So that's another one I got to tackle. That didn't take too long. I'll just scrape that down a bit. And I've got 2 eggs. They'll go in next. Put them in here. Okay. We get those eggs incorporated. of vanilla. I'm using right now this Mexican vanilla. Any vanilla that you have will be good. Try to use a good vanilla. That's a half a tablespoon, Sandra. That's too much. 1 teaspoon. You really can taste the vanilla in these cookies too. It's really good with the orange. All right, we'll get that in there. So into the sugar and the butter, we're kind of putting the wet ingredients at this point. And then I have 1/3 of a cup of fresh orange juice with the pulp and everything. The pulp gives it a nice flavor too. So we're going to add that. And at this point, keep scraping down the sides because I can see here that there's a lot of butter and sugar stuck to the sides of the bowl. So you want to get everything, all the goodness in there. Scrape your beater too, so that everything incorporates well. Nikki has never made these cookies at home, so I'm hoping she'll give it a try at home for her, my 2 granddaughters. Although I will tell you, one of my granddaughters doesn't like the orange. She'd prefer it without the orange, so the spatula will not be for Cece. And here is the orange rind. Pop that in. Good stuff. Maybe I will stop it because I want all that orange rind in there. All right, that's pretty good. Give it a good whip at this point. Everything is incorporated, and you can see, hopefully you can see it's a little loose at this point. It hasn't really started to form a batter yet because we don't have any of the dry ingredients in there. So let's start with that. So this is salt, 1/2 teaspoon, and baking soda, 1/2 teaspoon. Got our flours. So this is a cup of whole wheat flour and 1/2 cup of white flour. So stop the mixer. Again, let's scrape it down so everything can start to get incorporated with those dry ingredients. Now, your batter at this point, you know, to you, it might look a little broken because you've got the acid from the orange in there combined with the butter. That's how it is supposed to look, so don't worry about it. The dry ingredients are gonna definitely bring everything together. So let's get the 1/2 cup of white flour in there and the cup of whole wheat. So these are a pretty healthy cookie when you think about it, because you have, you know, not that much sugar, a cup of sugar. You're going to end up with about 3 dozen cookies when you're done. So to Madeleine's credit, they were, if you have to have a cookie, they weren't that bad for you. I have not compared this to a regular oatmeal cookie recipe that you find online. So I'm not sure how it compares, but I will tell you, once you make these, you want to make them again. So you can see now with the flour that this is starting to set up into a pretty nice batter. thicker. And it's incorporated all that juice and all that butter into a nice consistency. All right, and then the next thing that goes in here, so you can see the batter, are the rolled oats. They don't have to be cooked or anything. They're just dried right out of the container. Any rolled oat variety that you like. And we'll incorporate those. That's going to make the batter firm up even more. But that being said, this batter is not really stiff. Just stiff enough to hold up and give you a really good cookie. The baking soda is going to give it a little bit of a rise. All right, so there you go. One more scrape. Okay, and then for the finishing touch, we're going to add 1/3 cup of chopped walnuts and 3/4 cup of semi-sweet chocolate chips is what I have today. All right, let's just get them in. You can see, they're mixing in. That's it. You just want to make sure they're mixed in throughout the whole batter. And that's it. The batter is done. So I will clean up here, and then I want to show you how to scoop the cookies out, and we'll put them in the oven and bake them, and you can see what that finished product looks like. So bear with me 1 second while I get things ready over here, and I'll be back with you in 2 shakes. All right, so here's a close-up look at the batter. As you can see, it's firmed up really nicely, and you can see the oatmeal flecks in there, the chocolate. Looks really delicious. So we're gonna scoop ourselves out some cookies. All right, so I've started to scoop out the cookies. I've got a cookie sheet with a parchment paper, so I've lined it with parchment paper. If you don't have parchment paper, just make sure that you grease the cookie sheet really well. And the oven is preheated to 350 degrees. And we're gonna bake these cookies for 10 to 12 minutes at 350. I wanted to make sure on the recipe card that I was telling you the right thing. And I like to use a 1 ounce scoop, cookie scoop, just to make sure that the cookies, set up really nice and come out sort of rounded out of the oven. So a 1 ounce, you can just simply check your scoop, but I always double check I got the right one. And I just scoop them out 3 across. Batter is really good for scooping. Just make sure it's level, right? And then give it a scoop. It'll come out pretty easily. If any little tails come out, just push them back in. You can use the side of the bowl to help you out. Nice rounded scoop. And that's it. This sheet is ready to go in. So I'm going to put them in the oven, like I said, 10 to 12 minutes, 350 degrees. I'm going to scoop out the rest of the batter and have them ready to go. When I bake cookies like this, I usually do 1 cookie sheet at a time. You have a better oven, you know your oven well, you can put in 2. If you're going to put in 2 cookie sheets, you might want to keep your eye on them and maybe cook them a little longer, bake them a little longer, because they have a tendency to take a little longer, or one tray gets done, you might have to flip them in between. One tray might get done faster than the other. So be careful with that. If you have the time, just do them 1 sheet at a time and you'll be fine. So I'll see you in a few minutes with some freshly baked Madeleine's Oatmeal Cookies. All right, so here they are, Madeleine's oatmeal cookies, fresh out of the oven. Nice, beautiful brown around the edges. They spread a little bit, but not much. And you can take them off the tray and put them on a rack to let them cool. And you should notice that they're nice and browned on the bottom and beautifully risen on the top. Now that's a cookie. All right. So, I hope you make them. I hope you have fun with them. They are delicious. From my recipe box to yours, Madeleine's Oatmeal Cookies. Hope you're all doing well. Till next time, take care, everybody.